Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hearthstone Collegiate National Championships Finals. After 7 weeks of round-robin Swiss play, a couple of playoff brackets, we're finally down to our Final Four. Well, technically our Final Three now, because we just saw Texas Tech take out UCLA, and we're going to have the College of New Jersey taking on University of Colorado coming up next. My name's Cora, and joining me for this set is going to be TSM professional Hearthstone player, 2016 World Championship competitor, Sidonia. Now, I know you're a competitive Hearthstone player, so you're behind that desk a lot, but this is your first time actually casting professionally for Collegiate Hearthstone. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. As pro players, like what we do during events is we get together and talk about the game, so it's a bit like casting. I'm also used to talking about games when I'm streaming, so I want to bring that experience and just have a good time talking about the games with you tonight.
Yeah, same deal, just a slightly different location. And if you weren't tuning in for our first match of the day, we're playing a slightly different format than you're used to for TESPA Collegiate Hearthstone. It's a format very similar to the Invitational from this year's BlizzCon event. Here you can see our two competitors. It's going to be the College of New Jersey up against University of Colorado Boulder. So the East and the North regions. Teams have picked an order, a specified order for their players to go in, and each player has brought 3 separate classes. Each player has 2 lives, meaning that they will play up in this order. These are the matchups. It will be SoFlo versus Flame first up. They can choose to use any of the classes that they have represented there, any of those 3 classes. And then if that class, whether they win or lose, that class is unavailable for that player until they've played all 3 of their classes. So it's going to be an even 9-class usage here. We'll see exactly how many classes we do get to see. It's best of 11. So first to 6 is going to take this series. The last series, Texas Tech beat UCLA 6-4. So we didn't quite get to game 11, but it was a rather long series. And here we're going to be able to see our first team just a little bit more in depth. It's the College of New Jersey, SoFlo, KG de Commish, and Answer with criminal law, political science, and finance. Now, I know you don't know much about these guys, Sidonia, but I actually have gotten to cast them a couple of times before. This is their 4th season in the TESPA Hearthstone Collegiate playoffs. They've never made the top 8 before, so for them, this has to be an absolutely massive deal. Such a great payoff for so much work that they've put in previously, and now they've finally made it to the finals of their region. So I'm excited to see what they have to bring to the table. But their opponents, the University of Colorado Boulder, you actually said that you've played up against a couple of these guys, Flame, Zephos, and Tiny Fat Sheep, with film studies, computer science, and computer science strategic communication. What do you know about them, Sidonia?
Yeah, so we had a DreamHack in Denver this year, so I'm sure that was a very valuable practice for these guys. I got to play against Flame during the event, and also we saw Zephos in the top 16 who played against Muzzy, so I'm sure these guys will give a good show today.
Yeah, Zephos up against Muzzy in the top 16. It went all the way to game 5. Unfortunately for Zephos, Muzzy did end up winning that match, but it was a really good showing for him. So with both of these teams, we have, more so than our first match of today, more experienced Hearthstone players, I would have to say. TCNJ in the TESPA Collegiate Series in general, whereas University of Colorado Boulder, these guys have a lot of experience outside of this in tournaments such as DreamHack events, like you just said. So first up, we are going to have SoFlo versus Flame. These are their classes that you can see right here. It's going to be the Rogue, the Druid, and the Priest up against the Rogue, the Warlock, and the Druid. And we were actually speculating a little bit backstage during that first match what the best strategy for this tournament is, because we're in such a new meta. This is a format that I've never actually seen before. I think it is entirely unique to this tournament. The Invitational had a little bit of influence, but it is even just a little bit different from that. It seems like the best strategy that we came up with is to front load your best classes onto one person. It kind of seems like that's what these guys have done here.
Yeah, that seems to be very good. What we noticed in the last match, for instance, is that at the end, one player can get to play the same classes they already played before. So if you have all the best decks on one player, he's less likely to lose in the first few matches, and then you can reuse the good classes at the end. We see her SoFlo starting with the Priest, probably one of the best classes right now, and Colorado doing the same thing with the Rogue.
Priest and Rogue, of course, before Kobolds and Catacombs meta were two of the strongest decks in the format, and that really has not changed. We're still seeing Highlander Priest, we're still seeing Tempo Rogue, just a couple of new additions to the builds. The Priests can run a Dragon package, which is really nice, alongside Duskbreaker, the new dragon that AoEs very nicely against aggressive decks, and the Rogue with the addition of Corridor Creeper and the Minstrel, pretty solid deck. So what do you think of this matchup in general, Sidonia? Is there anybody really favored here?
In general, I feel Priest has to be favored, especially like the key cards of the Priest are Anduin and Kazakus in this matchup. They have both of them already. Especially with the coin, it's interesting to see if they're going to keep the coin up to turn 7 so they can coin Anduin into the Bone Mare turn. That's something that will usually seal the match if they can manage to save the coin up so long, but they have a lot of cards to play, like Shadowward Pain, Kazakus, so they will they should be able to survive until that point in the game.
The onus is really on the Rogue to be the absolute aggressor here. So TCNJ is just going to need to play passively, play very defensively, and respond to all of the threats that Colorado can put on the board turn after turn. And traditionally, the Tempo Rogue does run out of threats at a point. So if SoFlo and TCNJ can stay out of a 10 to 15 burn range from Leroy plus Shadow Step plus other incidental damage later on in the game, then they should be okay. They should feel relatively safe. But the Tempo Rogue, with the addition of the Elven Minstrel, has gained additional resources. It has more longevity now than it did pre-Kobolds and Catacombs meta. So it's going to be a little bit tougher for the Priest to get to that point, but still definitely possible.
Yeah, I mean, it depends as well what the Rogue cut for Elven Minstrel. I've seen Rogues cut Karen, so that's one of the cards that provided a lot of longevity as well. Now they play Corridor Creepers, so that's heavy on tempo, but won't help last longer against a Priest. And this particular game, we see the Rogue with a very aggressive draw. Usually the Rogue will have options to try to play around specific removal cards from the Priest. Sometimes they'll have a Scalebane to play around Dragonfire Potion or something like that. But in this case, I think they have to play very aggressively, since they don't really have any options to play around anything. No,
this is about as linear of a draw as it goes for Rogue. They do have relatively strong mid-game, even after cutting Cairn Bloodhoof from the lists. You run the Cobalt Scalebanes, now you have the Corridor Creepers into Bone Mare, sometimes Lich King in the list as well. So the mid to late game for the Rogue is actually reasonably good for what you would expect from a tempo deck, I suppose. But this is just all aggression all the way this time around, and we'll have to see if it pays off. But with the hand that TCNJ is holding, they have Anduin for a strong Bone Mare turn in the mid to late game. SoFlo and TCNJ can just cut that down with Anduin right away. Kazakus with a potion that is so incredibly flexible, and with the Raza free heals going forward, Flame and Boulder, Colorado are just going to need a lot more to get this job done.
Yeah, this is actually interesting because Colorado just drew Edwin, which New Jersey doesn't really have an answer for. So let's see if they're going to accept to play the deckhand without charge this turn, just so they can get a 6/6 Edwin out. Yeah, so that's what they're doing. I really like this play. They have to hope not to run into a Silence or Shadow Word Dead here, and they're going to get rewarded for it, it looks like.
The density of the draws for Colorado going forward is pretty good. You've got your Scalebanes, you've got your Elven Minstrels. They've drawn the majority of their early games, so they can hope that what they're going to be picking up now will be effective mid-game.
Yeah, we're going to most likely see a Kazakus here.
What do you think they want to go for off the Kazakus, though? Because they're rolling into Dragonfire Potion, so they've got AoE already. Do you think they need more? Do they need to go for a 5-mana potion, try to find the deal 4 to all? Or are they looking for more targeted?
This board is really awkward to deal with for a Kazakus potion, actually, because it's easy to deal with one big threat with the 5 damage or the polymorph or a bunch of mid-sized threats, but it's very awkward. They might choose to go for a 5-mana potion. They could always combo that with Holy Smite to clear everything if they get the 4 damage. I think maybe since they were roping, they didn't want to risk playing Kazakus and not having time to choose. This is not bad too, but they might have to use the coin for Dragonfire next turn though. And like we said, the coin is very valuable in this matchup, especially when you have Anduin in hand.
Yeah, well, they will be getting an additional coin off of the Death Rattle from the Gilded Gargoyle, so then they do have maybe a little bit more flexibility to AoE earlier than they would normally like to, because they do want to hold that coin for Anduin to respond immediately to a Bone Mare turn from Colorado. So while I do think that Kazakus may have just been more effective this turn, you don't honestly want to play Kazakus until you know what you want from that Kazakus potion. They may need the AoE later on, but maybe they wouldn't grab it necessarily right now because they've got Dragonfire in hand. So I do like that they're holding it, especially since they did wait so long that you don't want to be pressured and ultimately make mistakes when you're picking your potion.
Wow, this is interesting. They valued the backstab more than the minion here, and actually lose 2 damage with this route, and they actually have Leroy Shadow Step, so it's 12 damage they can do as soon as they reach 8 mana. Priest is already pretty low in health. Personally, I would have liked to see a backstab here because the face damage is so valuable with the kind of hand you have here that's about to run out of dredge pretty soon.
You do make up the damage with the SI7 agent in hand, assuming that you wouldn't find something else to combo with it other than that backstab, but now there's just nothing to play the backstab on.
I mean, we're gonna see probably double SI agent this turn. That's what's gonna give them the best board presence. I assume they're gonna want to keep the Shadow Step for the Leroy burst damage.
Yeah,
that's what makes them
it's
most
too good to
sense
give
here.
up, especially when TCNJ are so low already. This is just the hand that Colorado was dealt. They needed to get very aggressive, but they've made the most of their resources. They've had a specific game plan throughout this game, and they're sticking to it. Other than
if they can beat
deviation.
If they can beat this absolutely amazing priest hand, it's gonna be
this is about
a
as
big
gross as it
accomplishment.
gets. So you could do deal 3, freeze a random enemy, then you're shutting down both of the SI7 agents, at least temporarily.
Yeah, the priests are really thinking about protecting their life total here. Basically, you want to stay out of range of burst because that's how you lose that game from that point. When you have, and when you're not so worried about big threats, you're more worried about burst.
The resummon a random friendly minion that died this game. They had nothing that would be valuable to bring back, so just prevent all damage incoming this turn. Leroy Shadow Step is 12, but you're still a little bit short on mana.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because that 2 damage they missed when they wanted to save the backstab might just be the difference in this game. Yeah, there's not much to do this turn, or they might just go face with the 1 damage here.
Killing off the Kazakus, this is putting a lot of stock in this SI7 agent sticking around. If you went face this turn with the dagger, went face next turn with the dagger, then that negates the lesser heal from TCNJ next turn, and you could just have the 12 damage with the Leroy Shadow Step.
Yeah, that's interesting. They could really set up lethal there. Let's see what...
This is just assuming that these minions don't get removed.
I mean, there's not many good ways to remove these minions, because we saw the Dragonfire being used, the Kazakus potion was used, so...
It's what, Auchenai Circle or Duskbreaker with Dragon in hand, so it's all contingent on something else being available.
Or there's things like Spirit Lash, combined with Holy Smite, or just a bunch of different removal options, but you don't really want to play around multiple cards like that usually.
But ultimately, Colorado going to take game number 1, even with Kazakus Raza and Anduin and Dragonfire Potion available to them. TCNJ can't get this one done. That's kind of surprising, considering you just assume that when a Razakus Priest has that opening hand, there's nothing that they can't beat.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, the rogue draw was very unusual, very aggressive, and they didn't have tools like Spirit Lash or even Priest of the Feast, or just something to stick on the board.
Yeah, no greater healing potion. The rogue did not pick up any mid-game whatsoever. There was nothing to deviate from that strict hit face the entire game, try to kill you before you have access to Shadow Reaper, Anduin, and Raza game plan. And ultimately, that's exactly what they needed. It worked out because it wasn't a ton of board pressure, but after the Dragonfire Potion, it was just straight damage to face, and the Priest didn't have enough heal to get out of range of anything, so worked out this time.
Yeah, that's a super important win. It's even a matchup we might see again if both of these guys get to rotate through.
It is possible if Soflo doesn't get knocked out before he's able to play his next 2 classes. We could see that Priest come back around. Same goes for Flame, because when you've played a class now, it doesn't matter if you win or lose, that class is locked. You will only have access to it again once the players have played all 3 of their decks. And we are going in a strict rotation. So up next, it's going to be KG to Kamish up against Zephos. We've got the Shaman, Warlock, and Paladin taking on the Hunter, Priest, and Mage. So for me, these seem like the B lineups for these teams. They've taken the strongest lineups and front-loaded those, put those first. The second strongest lineups going second.
Yeah, this is a super important win for New Jersey for sure, because if they can take out, for Colorado, because if they can take out the strongest lineup that Soflo has, then they have a good path cleared for victory for them. So now Zephos is up with the Priest against a Paladin. So that's a matchup that traditionally was pretty good for Priest to beat aggressive decks. Let's see with the Corridor Creeper how that matchup will change.
He's a sleeper for sure. Very weak to Dragonfire Potion, but resilient to Auchenai Circle, not Pine-Size Horror, but still an incredible addition to any... I was going to say any tempo deck, but really just any deck in general.
Yeah, it can be pretty tough to clear those 5/5s on turn 3 or 4.
Just about anything. And you said this one historically is quite good for the Priest. I would generally see this from a contrary position, in that if the Paladin gets the Paladin start that I know that this deck is capable of, it's so difficult, much like in that previous game up against the Rogue, for the Priest to deal with that much continuous pressure. And the Paladin has an even better mid and late game than the Rogue does, so it's easier to follow up that incredibly strong start. But when you see a start like this for KG and for TCNJ, this is not what they want going up against a Razaka's Priest. They want as much pressure as possible, and this is just a little bit too slow.
Yeah, the Paladin's not exactly curving out here. The Priest has a better curve than the Paladin, which is pretty rare. They have both their 3 drops. Let's see if they're gonna opt to coin one here. Like we said last game, coin and win can really bail you out of many situations involving Bone Mare. So I think just Holy Smite the Murloc is pretty good here. Yeah, that's what they're going for. Then they can just curve the 3 drops, and that's gonna set them up very well heading into the mid game.
Get that Tidecaller off the board as soon as humanly possible. Tidecaller Rockpool War Leader is the curve of death from Paladin. You want to avoid that at all costs. So TCNJ, they're still picking up resources off the top. It might be enough to get them through this early game. Not as strong as they would have liked, but at least they haven't just had to hero power pass the first couple of turns.
Yeah, let's see now if they go for the Tar Creeper or the Glimmer Root. So Glimmer Root can aggressively trade into the 1/3, but it's weaker against exactly the cards the Kamish has in hand, the Rallying Blade and the Megazord. So
it's tough to know what to play around.
Yeah, he's not even getting a good
against
card from it, sadly.
Up against Murloc Paladin, because Murloc Paladin now can play, I feel like, such a wide array of cards. You can run Murloc Paladin the way that you would have played it prior to Kobolds and Catacombs and just stick in a bunch of Corridor Creepers and go full aggression with that strong mid and late game that Paladin is known for. Or you can change things up a little bit. You can run Dino Size, you can run Spiteful Summoner, you can run Grand Archivist like Zixo was doing in Seed Story Cup. There's a lot that you can do with this deck, and we haven't seen enough of the meta yet, I believe, especially these guys being full-time students, to really know exactly what they're up against.
Yeah, I really like the Rallying Blade here, especially drawing the 1-drop. Really sets up Megazord nicely for next turn. And yeah, this Paladin probably doesn't run Spiteful Summoner, since they found some room for Alder Peacekeeper here.
That's an unusual inclusion. It's very passive, really defensive, maybe a little bit too much for a deck that can be as aggressive as Paladin.
Yeah, the Paladin used to be a lot slower. They used to run like Equality, Consecrate, those kind of cards in mid-range Paladin, like Curator, but right now we're seeing very aggressive versions, and especially with like cards like Corridor Creeper that incentivize you to go as aggressive as possible.
Yeah, Control Paladin was a great deck even just, what, 2 sets ago? DreamHack Austin Shoop won with a heavy, heavy Control Paladin. Things change very quickly.
Yeah, that seems like it was so long ago.
Crazy how the times change when you get
Decks,
Corridor Creeper in the meta.
Yeah, decks like Raza Priest especially have been responsible for pushing all of these slow control decks out of the metagame.
Very influential indeed. Colorado going to be forced to go with this Tar Creeper, hoping that they can shut down. 2 minions on board would be ideal, at least the Murloc Tidecaller, if they're assuming a hero power is had here. But TCNJ going to find the best Megasaur that they likely can. And Poisonous, actually, they can make some use of just that 1/1 hero power Murloc on board. Start to push some additional pressure, or
yeah,
they can
Poisonous
get
seems
really aggressive.
pretty good here.
Volcanic Might and trade in the Rallying Blade.
Yeah, that's a bit better in the in the next few turns. Yeah, so that's what they're going for. So they're not valuing the weapon too much here.
No, especially since they just picked up a replacement. They're going to want to get that Rallying Blade down, start swinging face anyway. So might as well bulk up your board a little bit, put on some additional pressure, and try to keep this board as resilient as possible, because the follow-up for TCNJ isn't actually that good. 1 Dragonfire Potion, and they don't have much to refill with. So they're going to need to be pretty careful. Use their resources.
Yeah, especially when you see a Shadow Visions come down like this. Now you really know you have some cards to play around. If you don't see the Shadow Visions card being played this turn, they're gonna want to play around Dragonfire for sure. The thing is, against Priest, it can be really difficult to win if you try to play around too many cards. Especially, we see the Paladin hand doesn't have that much going on right now. Like, they probably can't win a super long game. So it's probably in their best interest not to play around too many cards and try to play aggressively. But it's going to be interesting to see how scared they are of cards like Dragonfire, because if they don't play, let's say, a Corridor Creeper next turn, then they might just be too slow.
If they can sort of ride that line and develop enough pressure that they're threatening lethal over 1 or 2 turns without dropping all of the remaining resources in hand, then they absolutely will. But if they don't have meaningful refill, then they're just going to go all in. They're just going to hope that Colorado doesn't have the AoE that they need, and right now they don't. They're still going to be 1 turn off of Shadow Reaper Anduin, even with coin in hand. They don't have a circle for that Auchenai. They don't have Dragonfire Potion, so TCNJ are going to want to be wary of those combinations of that much AoE that the Priest has access to. But right now, Colorado just doesn't have it.
Yeah, this is a very interesting turn, because they could want to hold on to the Corridor Creeper, thinking they can play it for free next turn and bone merit immediately if their board gets cleared. So they might want to just cash in some damage this turn, play the Rallying Blade, and just kind of tell the Priest, well, remove this board first and then we'll refill. They probably don't want to go too wide, but what they don't know is the Priest doesn't really have a good way to clear anything. But I think with so many cards in hand, they have to assume there's some kind of clear coming.
Maximum of 13 damage to face this turn. Gonna deviate just a little bit, clear off that Blood Mage Thalnos and neutralize Spirit Lash a little bit more. But the worst case scenario for TCNJ here would be a Dragonfire Potion this turn. They refill with Corridor Creeper Bone Mare, and they see Coin Anduin the turn after that. That's not going to be the case for Colorado this time around, though. And for the second game in a row, Priest struggling to deal with aggression from tempo decks. Priest is a deck that, in Conquest and Last Hero Standing formats, has been getting the ban pretty much every time. And now we're seeing it really struggle 2 games in a row.
Yeah, this Priest draw was pretty awkward, because they have half of like the Auchenai Circle combo. They do the Shadow Vision, didn't get anything out of it, so that's not where you want to be.
You have to hold on to the coin because you've got Anduin in hand, and that is pretty much the last stand for Colorado.
Yeah, I'm also surprised TCNJ didn't send the Rallying Blade face, or they kind of missed some damage last turn, so they could have tried to set lethal a bit more, but Now let's see how much damage they have this turn.
16.
Yeah, they have 16,
Could have been 19 if they swung with the Rallying Blade last turn, so they still would have been a little bit off.
Yeah, they still would have been off because Priest had some healing. Now they have to expect the Anduin to come down next turn. When you see Priest keep the coin for so long, you have to expect that. So can they win in 2 turns through Anduin is the question, basically.
So you...
So if they
deal
do
16 damage this turn, Colorado goes down to 5, Anduin brings them up to 10. Can you do 10?
I don't think they can.
No, they can't.
So they decided to clear here, and they're gonna have not much left after Anduin next turn. Oh, Psychic Scream.
Huh.
Do they
Okay,
ever
so
go for that instead of Anduin now?
would TCNJ have lethal with a Bone Mare pickup? They've got 2, 3, 6. Bone Mare would be 10.
But
with
Anduin
the
also
Anduin, you
puts
have
them
15.
to 15, so it's not super risky to play Anduin here. And Psychic Scream is more flexible removal, also gets true cards like Steed or something like that.
That's true.
So,
Blessing of Kings. Get that Tyrion out of there without equipping Ashbringer for your opponent.
so maybe you still like Anduin here.
TCNJ played this one really defensively.
I wonder.
And I know that up against Priest, you need to be aware of all 30 cards in the deck. You need to be aware of all of the removal that they have. But because it is 30 unique cards, sometimes you just don't have the ability to play around those cards and execute your win condition at the same time. And it seems like that's sort of the trap that TCNJ fell into this time around. They played a little bit too defensively, and now they're suffering as a result.
Yeah, they played around a few cards, and maybe they didn't have the hand to play around it. But it's interesting now because the Colorado just played Psychic Stream instead, and they still don't have a board clear. So if TCNJ gets a good refill here, which it seems they have a pretty decent refill, they can probably come back into this game because now Anduin's not going to do much.
Well, Colorado have coin mind control and mind control if TCNJ are just dropping big threats. If they just manage to find Curator or Tyrion.
Yeah, they need to go wide this turn, and they need a good top deck for sure.
But it is still definitely possible. They want to go wide, not tall.
Yeah, exactly. But can they even suspect that they have Anduin? Because they might have thought with three targets they would have played Anduin last turn as well. So
Colorado would have been at 15 health. There would have been 3 power of minions on board with a 1 durability Rallying Blade equipped. So I personally would have gone for Shadow Reaper Anduin and saved the Psychic Scream, which is a much more flexible removal tool.
Yeah, that's
But with the
reasonable.
Dragonfire pickup, nothing really matters.
Yeah, that was reasonable to expect, but Dragonfire is going to seal it now. It's just probably the best draw in the deck, and afterwards they can mind control everything. So it's usually pretty easy to win when we have like 10 cards against 2 in hand.
2 really pretty bad cards. And again, I have to wonder what TCNJ is playing that Aldor Peacekeeper for.
I mean, it's pretty interesting because Aldor was not played last meta game when a lot of decks were playing Hydras that were, and now Hydra is not being played and people are playing Aldor. So that might be a card we're going to see disappear again pretty soon.
Corridor Creeper off the top. 1 big minion is not going to do it for TCNJ with 2 mind controls off of Lyra in hand for Colorado. They still have not utilized that coin, so they're going to have access to full mana next turn.
Yeah, actually, Mind Control is a card I've been seeing a bit more of since
Grand
Spiteful
Archivist
Summoner.
and Spiteful Summoner. Yep, I've gotten beaten by that a couple times on ladder. Surprises you the first time, and then you're just mad every single time.
I mean, Mind Control surprises you every time now, I think.
Actually, saw Zixo today playing Dragon Priest with Archivist and Spiteful Summoner up against, I forget who his opponent was, playing Rizaka's Priest. And he played Free from Amber, got the Grand Archivist, pulled Mind Control at the end of the turn from the Grand Archivist, and it casted it on the Rizaka's Priest's Gadgets and Auctioneer, and then Zixo won.
Seems like a pretty good turn.
It was pretty good.
The light has betrayed me.
Okay, so Anduin gonna come down now, saving that coin for a hero power, because at 15 you are safe from pretty much anything that TCNJ can do. If they throw down Bone Mare, you can mind control the taunt. If they throw down Tyrion, you can mind control that. Anything that they play that you want, you can have. So just keep that board clear, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I really wonder if maybe they have a Divine Favor in there, which doesn't really mesh with cards like Elder Peacekeeper though, so I wouldn't expect that TCNJ has many ways to come back into this game. Of course, they don't see the priest hand, but it could be like any 6 cards at this point.
I mean, I would expect that there's a couple copies of Call to Arms in this deck.
Yeah, that's a card that can give you a decent refill.
Yeah, but again, I'm wondering where the Aldor fits in.
Because they don't have a board clear here, but they can just take it slow with Anduin and still clear quite a bit. Or they can... Let's see, if they mind control here, they leave 5 power on board.
It's actually quite risky.
And we've seen both Bone Mares, have we?
We've seen one.
All right,
We've seen one Bone Mare into the Psychic Scream turn. We haven't seen a second Bone Mare. Granted, Colorado threw like 5 cards back into TCNJ's deck, so their deck is quite watered down right now.
No, it's true. They got a bunch of cards back. They probably got one of those Bone Mares shuffled.
They did.
So, yeah.
Bone Mare, Megasaur.
I mean, when they draw the circle, they have to do it.
Yeah, again, nothing matters when you pick up the exact removal that you need. It's just the absolute raw power of the Rizaka's Priest shining through. There's Call to Arms, one of the best cards in the set for aggressive decks, period, but specifically, of course, it's only playable in Paladin. So you're seeing it in Murloc Paladin, it fits right in. You're seeing it in straight up aggressive Paladin, playing with Knife Jugglers. Works very well there, too. Pretty much just a natural 2 of.
Yeah, that card's just
it's nuts.
Insane.
It's nuts.
Shadowy thoughts.
And it's really flexible. You can use it so many different ways. It's interesting in deck building. So, yeah, the power level of that card is very impressive.
Lets you pull out the weaker minions from your deck.
Yeah, they can just pick off the minions one by one at this point. So let's see how long TCNJ wants to play this game.
The hero power is going to clear up all of the smaller minions. The mind controls can take any larger minion. The TCNJ drop down, and Colorado know that they've won this one. They're just going through the motions, but they're already looking pretty happy because looks like they're about to go up to a 2-0. But there is Spiteful Summoner.
Oh, so they are running that card. We didn't see any big spell.
Dino size, dino size, dino size. Nope, it's Spike Ridge Steed. So a 6-drop minion randomly. Yeah, a pair of 4/4s for 6 mana is not bad.
Yeah, that's gonna be a pretty easy mind control clear.
Well.
So yeah, you just mind control one of the 4/4s, then you can trade in the Wild Pyro into the other one, and the Luthor is gonna die, but it doesn't really matter.
Is there anything else that you can do? Can you
they could
maybe go off with Acolyte of Pain this turn?
I mean, they have so many options at this point. I mean, probably any card is good, except like just don't play the Valfin.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I want to mind control this turn, actually. I think I'm dropping Acolyte. I think I'm running in Loot Hoarder. Well, run in Loot Hoarder first and then reevaluate, because you can fit in a couple of hero powers here with the cheap cards that you do have in hand, aside from Vilefin, because you want to keep your hero power active. So you can hero power, Acolyte, hero power. Or you can just Spirit Lash this. 2 draws off of the Acolyte, you gain 5 health. Get to fit in another 2 damage.
Yeah, that works too.
Pretty much as good as it can get.
Oh, so is that... Yeah, that's not quite... It's not quite lethal because they don't have
you don't have the 3 hero power. Yeah, that's going to be it. TCNJ knows that there's no point in them dragging this one out any longer. They could have justified it to see some more cards in the Priest deck, because it's possible that they'll be seeing that Priest deck later on. But I think once you've gotten to that point and you don't see any dragons in the deck, you can kind of just piece together that this is pretty much just a traditional Raza deck. Nothing too different about it since Kobolds and Catacombs was released, with the exception of, maybe throw a Psychic Scream in there. So that's going to be a 2-0 lead for University of Colorado coming out of the gate. They are doing very, very well so far and putting TCNJ on the back foot, which is You know what? Honestly, a little bit unusual. TCNJ is the team coming into this that has more TESPA Collegiate experience. Specifically, they have SoFlo on the team, who has 29 Open Cup wins and 64 top 4 finishes in the last year and a half. So this guy's not just a TESPA Collegiate competitor, he's a Hearthstone competitor in general. This is a guy who's playing in HCT tournaments, who's grinding Open Cups and ladder nonstop, even while pursuing higher education. So both of these teams are really experienced. Colorado's just got the upper hand right now.
Yeah, and SoFlo's got all the good decks, so he's gonna have to pick up some wins for his team soon. But next match we have Answer against Tiny Fat Sheep, and both teams have a similar strategy of putting like the weaker classes on paper on their third players.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see probably some hunters or some shamans.
Yeah, it's the Hunter Warrior Mage for Answer, the Hunter Priest Mage for Tiny Fat Sheep. So a little bit different for Colorado Boulder. They've actually thrown that Priest onto their third player, so they're splitting up their classes a little bit more, whereas TCNJ have really front-loaded the best classes onto those first 2 players. Probably the players that they think are the strongest players on their team, I would guess. But it is the Mage for Answer, but I was going to say Secret Mage, but then you see the Artificer and the Frost Nova in hand, and now this is definitely going to be a more controlling build. And for Colorado, it is going to be a Jade style of Shaman. We saw Evolve Shaman in the last matchup, but Jade Shaman as well is viable. I just don't know if it's very good. And in particular, can this go up against a Control Mage and come out on top?
I mean, we also saw a Volcano and a Lightning Storm in the mulligan for the Shaman, which means they're going a more control route, anti-aggro style, and that kind of deck doesn't really match up very well against a more control-ish mage, some kind of freeze mage. Like, you might be able to just run the Shaman out of threats. We're gonna see more cards of this mage deck. Like, if they have some cards like Alexstrasza, Jaina, Sunburn, it's gonna be tough for the Shaman to deal with. Of course, maybe the Shaman has heavy hitters like Kalamos in there, so
it's possible.
It's gonna be interesting to see.
You've got Kalamos, you have the new 2-drop that allows battle cries to trigger twice that same turn, so you can trigger Kalamos twice in one turn, which is a really neat combination that we have not seen a lot of thus far, because unfortunately it's just outclassed by pretty much every other aggressive or control deck. So Shaman's in kind of a weird place right now, whereas in the last meta it was just 100% Evolve Shaman all the time. This is what the deck can do. This is the best that the class has available to it. People are trying to diversify a little bit right now. We'll see if it pays off. At the very least, if Tiny Fat Sheep and Colorado can build up a wide board, and if TCNJ go for a Nova Doomsayer clear, for instance, they've got that Devolve to back it up, to get rid of that Doomsayer. So maybe if they can stick a wide board, they can then pressure with that board. But in general, the deck that they're running doesn't have as much potential pressure as just an Evolve Shaman would.
Yeah, for sure. Like, Evolve Shaman can win against anything if they get the Doppel Evolve into Bloodlust draw. This Shaman is going to be trying to grind out a win, basically, with Jade, so it just remains to see if, in any world, Jades are powerful enough now to be able to face the other decks that have really strong late games now. So, and yeah, I was really hyped for Shaman this expansion when I saw Grumble.
World Shaker.
Yeah, that card seemed really fun, but yeah, maybe like cards like Corridor Creeper, Spiteful Summoner are just better tempo, more powerful, and we might have to wait until rotation to see Grumble shine.
There he is. Beautiful, beautiful World Shaker.
It's even pretty cool in a Jade deck because you can replay all your Jades for 1 mana and
it's just great value.
Ramp your Jades.
Help you keep up with
Don't think we'll see that.
the power of Druid in some cases. Nah. Unfortunately, again, Shaman just outclassed right now. We'll have to see. Maybe there's some secret Shaman tech out there that can give the deck the boost that it needs, but not my favorite class in this meta.
Yeah, and we saw TCNJ pick up a Flame Strike, which is always a very good card against Shaman. As a mage, you're always worried about cards like Bloodlust if the board gets too big, so you want to pick up as many board clears as possible. But yeah, the Shaman has a lot of its own board clear. They have 2 Devolves, 1 Volcano, it's not the kind of matchup they're gonna get an opportunity to use those cards in. They really wanted to face some kind of aggressive deck.
It's possible that they make some use out of Volcano in the late game now that we're seeing the late game from TCNJ shape up respectively. You've got Frostlich Jaina and Medivh. So if TCNJ go for a last-ditch wide board state with Medivh, Boulder can maybe shut that down. We're seeing Unstable Evolution come out for... This is the first time I'm seeing it in competitive play. Yeah, this is definitely one of the stronger cards that Shaman has access to, so I am glad that we're seeing them play it.
So they seem to be just... they've set their minds to... Oh, they're just ramping into an 8 drop. How does that interact with Volcano?
I would think that it spawns every time.
Is that what we're gonna see this game? Can they clear Rot Phase? They can't really clear Rot Phase next turn. I really want to see Volcano.
Rot Phase is whenever it survives damage, it summons a legendary minion. Volcano deals 1 damage at a time, so I would assume that Rot Phase is going to spawn between every damage that it takes. And I don't see TCNJ with a way to clear it right now, so things could be about to get pretty interesting.
I wonder if Colorado goes for it. Like, you look at this hand, how are they going to win this game? A board full of legendaries sounds pretty good.
I mean, TCNJ has all the stall in the world in hand right now. They've got Blizzard, Double Frost Nova, Frostbolt, Flame Strike for clearing up afterwards, and some legendary minions are admittedly really, really bad. So we'll see what happens, but hey, it's something fun.
Yeah, also just the fact that Colorado decided not to evolve it into a 9-drop means they like the card, so...
Yeah, 9-drops generally are okay.
Oh, Frostbolt, they're actually clearing it. Oh, Tal'Daram, that's not a good one.
Legendary minions can be pretty bad. Ironically enough, one of the only decks that we've actually seen Prince Tal'Daram be played in is Shaman. So, there you go. Right at home. Although I do believe we're seeing him in some Q blocks now as well.
I've seen it in Q block, yeah. It's a pretty interesting card too. Like,
it's a card.
There's so many Deathrattles in Q blocks, so you might want to copy like a Mistress of Mixtures, a Void Lord,
or nom something and then copy your cube.
Yeah.
You can even copy your opponent's minions with it, so...
Yeah, it's just very flexible card.
It's a more flexible card than you think. It's just that normally your 3 slot is taken up by more valuable resources.
I mean, you would have loved to copy the Rot Face here, for sure.
That would have been pretty sweet.
I wonder what 3 drops they're running. They might be running... Yeah, actually, we did see a Lightning Storm. Probably have some Mana Tide in there.
So even still, at best here, Colorado gets 2 legendary minions off of the Rot Face if they play Volcano.
Oh,
they're just going to go for it. What's it going to be?
Oh, whoa. That's a good one. Oh, second one. Pyros. Wow, Pyros also pretty good too.
Those are so good. What they needed was they needed pressure. They needed resources that were good on the board that were going to force answers from Answer and TCNJ, and, well, this does it.
I mean, that's not something I thought I would see today when I woke up. Volcanoing your own board to get some Rot Face legendaries. I've never seen that, actually.
No, but I like it. It worked out very well for them. Kudos to TCNJ for frostbolting the Rot Face beforehand.
Yeah, that turned out to be a very good play because it basically caused them 2 legendaries.
Yeah, I don't know what they were expecting there, but they were hoping to go into the Flame Strike on the next turn and be able to clear off everything that was to spawn from that Rot Face, hoping and, well, by all means assuming that Colorado wouldn't have any way to damage their own Rot Face. But this is not your average Shaman deck, ladies and gentlemen. And now even with that Ysera Awakens pull, Colorado has 5 additional burn damage from hand that TCNJ will not expect throughout this game.
Yeah, so are they just gonna ignore Medivh here and keep ramping their Jades? Like, they probably have to suspect the secret is Ice Block at this point, so...
Having seen this style of deck, it is just going to be Ice Block. You've got that second Volcano in hand to hopefully clear up whatever spawns from Atiash.
Okay, so they're not going for the Chieftain just yet.
How aggressive does Colorado want to be here? They could just go face for 6. They've got 11 damage from hand with Ysera Awakens, Jade Lightning, Jade Claws.
Yeah, it seems pretty obvious that the mage deck can go a lot longer than Shaman. No matter how many threats Shaman gets, like with cards like Jaina, you can go as long as anyone. So
if this were...
I would like to see the Shaman play more aggressively, I think.
If this were Jade Druid can outvalue this mage deck. Jade Shaman, I honestly don't know. I don't know what the scope of our Jades are here. Are we playing Grumble World Shaker? Are we expecting to play 2 or 3 Jade Chieftains throughout this game? How big are the Jades going to get? I don't know what we're looking at.
What I'm thinking, like probably the Shaman might not even be playing Bloodlust, but if you can make the mage scared of Bloodlust at some point, you can force them into using their board clears inefficiently. So that's what going face last turn would have accomplished.
How
They
much
seem to be,
pressure?
yeah, they seem to be hesitating. They seem to be trying to play a super long game, but do they have any, does the Shaman have any heals? Because they're already pretty low, so...
There is the new, oh gosh, what's its name? Something like Healing Rain. I think it's like
Yeah, I think it
Volcano,
might-
but for healing.
Yeah, I think they might be playing that.
It's possible.
It's like Volcano for
Anything
healing.
is possible. It's Volcano for healing. Yeah, Colorado just considering how wide do they want to go. They've got responses for Doomsayer, but there's still a glyph card in hand for TCNJ. They choose just to put as much pressure on board as possible.
I
Don't
didn't
play
think they were
around
considering
anything.
Creeper here, because it still plays into Flame Strike, so...
Yeah, but there's likely not a natural copy of Flame Strike in TCNJ's deck. So I can see why Colorado would throw the Creeper out there as well.
Yeah,
Gonna get a little
they
bit
do know
punished.
there's... like, they knew about the glyph card that's been in hand for the whole
Yeah,
game.
but I mean, that could be any number of things. Another Ice Block, it could be Pyroblast, it could be, you know, God knows what.
You still kind of narrow it down, but yeah,
Some form of removal, likely, or some flexible card that can't be played yet.
Yep.
And with those water elementals cranking with Atiesh active, Colorado was going for the outvalue plan, and I just don't know if that's going to be possible. Still way off from fatigue for both of these teams.
Yeah, I don't think fatiguing the mage is ever happening this game, because they already have like so much pressure, and Jaina's gonna keep generating elementals. They have the weapon, as you just said. So
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know that there's a card in this game that
I mean-
triggers me more than Frostlich Jaina.
I mean, they seem to be trying to fatigue them, since they're just drawing them 3 cards with
I
the
mean-
Acolyte.
This is
So they didn't have an aggressive game plan in
No.
mind at all.
No.
Like we saw them take very conservative plays, but I don't see Shaman ever beating this mage by being
when I've got 6 on board, a taunt totem up, and 11 damage in hand. I'm thinking face. 100% of the time. You know there's an ice block active. You know that you're going to need to get through probably 2 of them, maybe 3, depending on what happens from Primordial Glyph.
Oh, and that's pretty interesting. They just drew a Blaze Caller, so they're not only Jade Shaman, they're
Jade Elemental, so
Jade
definitely
Shaman.
Kalamos in the deck, maybe Servant of Kalamos. So the burn range for the deck is even a little bit higher than we thought. There's a couple of 5 damage Blaze Caller shots in there as well.
Yeah, so they're not gonna... I mean, we suspected that they were not the Bloodlust variant.
Yeah.
But now they
No
have a big
doppelgangsters.
problem, though. They're facing innate aid that they have no way to clear. So
That's what you'd call a big problem?
it's pretty
I would
big.
call this meteor positioning a big problem. I.e., it's bad.
Yeah, you wanted the one in the middle, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, the meteor positioning is not the biggest problem here. It's mostly that it's kind of lethal-ish.
Yeah, no, it is just 100% lethal with the Atiesh attack phase first.
Yeah. Yeah, they see it.
Yeah, they've got the hero power as well. So, TCNJ going to pick up their first win in this set in game number 3. Colorado still got that 2-1 lead, but I do wonder exactly what they were going for in this one. Yes, when you build a deck, you want to know how the deck operates. You want to have an overarching game plan for the deck that you're playing. And in that one, it seemed like they were going for the long game for sure. They're playing an Elemental Jade build. They want to make the most use out of those 2 archetypes that they possibly can by repeatedly clearing the board and going for value in the late game. In that matchup, however, you do need to be able to recognize when you can't execute your game plan. Try to go for plan B sometimes.
Yeah, that deck was heavily anti-aggro. They were hoping to queue into aggro. They didn't. And they didn't really adapt too much, but I think their odds of winning against a control mage were super low in anyway.
Yeah, just not a bad match, or not a good matchup for them. Certainly a bad matchup. And now we've gone through the rotation once. We're going to start at the top yet again. It's going to be SoFlo taking on Flame. And importantly, this could be our first knockout. Once a player has lost twice, both of their lives are gone, and they are forced to leave. They cannot communicate with their team. And critically, that means that their team's then down a member. So SoFlo, this one's going to be big for him and big for TCNJ. They want to get this win and start to even out the playing field just a little bit more. The Rogue and the Druid up against the Warlock and the Druid.
Yeah, like we said, these are the heavy hitters for those teams. So kind of interesting to see what classes they're gonna go for, because the Warlock might be a bit weak against Druid, depending on what Warlock they have. Like, if they have a control-ish Warlock, that can be weak to a grindier Druid, like a Jade Druid or a big Druid. So
yeah. It's tough to queue when the deck lists are not open. You don't know if the Warlock is Zoo or if it is some form of control Warlock. You don't know if it's Jade Druid, if it's Big Druid, if it's Aggro Druid, for instance. So looks like these two teams are just going to go with the safest bets here. TCNJ on the Rogue, which has a very linear game plan pretty much every time. There's not much that this Rogue can do to deviate from its strategy. And then this Druid, which does appear to be an aggro Druid, actually, for Colorado.
Yeah,
I course, everybody's favorite chord.
I like this queue from Flame, because they want to keep their Warlock to queue into a safer bet, and also, if they can win this one game, SoFlo will be eliminated, and they get rid of the Druid as well.
And they get rid of they get rid of the three strongest classes, arguably, and they get rid of the strongest player on TCNJ. So this could be a big win for Colorado if they pick up this one. A nice, solid start for both teams. Nothing too crazy here. We're going to be going back and forth for a while. This one's going to be a battle of the board until either team has a definitive board lead. They're going to steamroll from there, or until Colorado has enough pressure on the board that they can Savage Roar and just push for lethal very quickly.
I mean, they can make a huge Edwin here, and that has to be pretty appealing. Like, how big can this Edwin get? So you can Shadow Step, replay. That's an 8/8 Edwin, if I count correctly. So that seems really interesting. Like, this is just a battle for the early board, like you said, and the Rogue can really just come in and get it. And there's not many outs for against a big Edwin like that. Only a Spellbreaker, and I don't think this Druid is running it. Though Spellbreaker is really good in this metagame. There's so many so many cards you want to break their spell.
I mean, namely, Warlock jumps to mind as why Spellbreaker is
exactly.
sick, because Warlock has so many incredible death rattles, but there's just a lot of use for Spellbreaker right now. It's one of the best tech choices that you can make in any deck, and even an aggro Druid, which you would think doesn't necessarily want to silence a lot of the time. In fact, if you've just got a lot of damage on the board and you want to be able to throw it face, silence any taunt minion, silence, a Mistress of Mixtures that prevents your opponent from healing. There's a lot of flexibility to this card, but I don't know that there's enough room in the deck for Colorado. We'll have to see exactly what their deck is comprised of. But nothing to challenge that big Edwin, and he's just going to keep chopping down minion after minion.
Yeah,
Colorado.
this draw for SoFlo is really good, and they really recognize the opportunity to make a big Edwin super early, and no idea how Colorado can come back from that. Like, they do have the Corridor Creeper that's super strong, but TCNJ will come right back with their own Corridor Creeper. Like, they're really setting it up for like a double Creeper turn. Like,
well, when one team has an 8/8 Edwin on the board, the other team does not and has no way to remove it, then yeah, you can pretty much call those pretty fast. If the Edwin comes down a little bit later, Colorado has the chance to counter with a Living Mana, for instance, or with a Bitter Tide Hydra, then maybe things would be a little bit different. But generally, if you can build a massive Edwin very quickly, there's not much that it can't beat.
Job's done.
Wow, so we see the Mark of the Lotus come down. So they really want to keep the Galaka Crawler for an eventual captain, probably.
Just any pirate that it can get value off of. It's probably good enough for
this
them.
does a decent job of contesting the Edwin. However, they're running out of cards and the Rogue is not.
That's actually crazy. Evolving Spores can give plus attack, can give Wind Fury. Can be a very, very aggressive card.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of ways the Druid can come back here. They probably need... I mean, they need living mana, but I don't think it's going to be enough in this case.
I think you... Galaka Crawler, the Swashbuckler, and Savage Roar. The Raven goes through the Tark Reaper, and you need to kill the Edwin right away. You're challenging a 3-4 to a 5-5, which you don't win that, but if you hope that TCNJ has just a lot of nothing in hand, which Boulder, Colorado knows that they've got 2 Flame Elementals in hand, and then maybe Colorado picks up living mana off the top, for instance. I think that's them putting themselves in the best position to win. It's still not a good position, but it's probably the best they've got.
Yeah, this turn, like you said, seems pretty good for Colorado. They don't know they're about to face another Corridor Creeper for sure.
No.
But
they sure hope they're
that's a pretty good option for them. But as Aggro Druid, you want to be ahead on board every single turn, and now they're in a position where they're always behind. Are they really not playing the Crawler? Alright.
Yeah, I don't think there's a world where you don't.
I mean, it does get killed on board, but you have to still kind of fight for it.
Well, if you're running this Creeper in, you should do that first. All right,
Definitely.
good. TCNJ slowed themselves down a little bit to find the correct sequencing. We did see in one occasion in the last series a team just sort of mess up that sequencing a little bit. They could have fit in a Hero Power or an additional Arcanologist after a trade, and they missed out on it. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, that's a mechanic we didn't have a lot of in the past, so we're going to have to get used to getting all the trades in before playing the Creepers.
There's that living mana off the top, and Colorado knows that TCNJ just has one randomly generated card in hand, so they think that this living mana is going to challenge really well, but this Evolving Spores is insane. Well, 5, 10, 14, 15, 21 damage with the Leroy pickup, 1 damage off of guaranteed lethal for TCNJ, but this Evolving Spores with Wind Fury or plus attack will just win them the game right now.
Yeah, I think they're counting it as well, but Evolving Spores, even if they get only like +1/+1, something like that.
Oh, that's still great. Just clear off all of the treants.
They can get all the value trades and still win.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good evolves here. Are they really?
5, 10, 14,
Did we miscount?
15, 21? We're not wrong, right? 5, 10, 14, 15.
All right, so they're one off.
I'm not that bad at math.
All right,
thankfully.
so that's interesting. Did they miscount, or they wanted to put them at 1?
No, I think they miscounted, because are they killed by? I mean, okay, they can't play Savage Roar, but could?
I mean, there's
no way that
because the thing is, they cannot Hero Power this turn. They can't gain health, so they would need to taunt. They can taunt. Like this was still virtually lethal, so
there's no punish because they can't deny the Hero Power for
I can think of a
TCNJ next
punish,
turn.
so it's perfectly fine. Maybe they didn't miscount and just reasoned it out that way.
Yeah, that's fine.
Evolving Spores was probably 100% win as well.
I mean, maybe they could have found,
I like their play.
Maybe they could have found the lethal that turn, but the Leroy over 2 turns was going to be lethal either way with no chance of a punish for a return lethal from Colorado. So TCNJ now going to tie up this series 2-2. And more importantly, SoFlo doesn't have to leave just yet. He's still going to be able to play with his team going forward in the series.
Yeah, it's turning out to be a super exciting series.
A lot of back and forth. I wasn't expecting so much back and forth, but after the previous series went to, I believe we started off 3-1, and then we ended up going, 4-4, 6-4 ultimately was the score. Now you can kind of start to see how these sets can get a little bit long. A lot of back and forth going on.
Yeah, and there's always a chance to eliminate players. So now Xephos can eliminate KG the Comish, who has some pretty solid decks. I think we have to expect Warlock now because it's a lot stronger than Shaman, so they want to have the chance to play it. I wonder what their mage is, but...
Shaman Warlock versus Hunter or Mage. What are they going to be? We're going to find out right after this. Another chance for elimination. KG de Kamish, if he doesn't win this one, it's going to be the first player eliminated in this series. It is the Shaman and the Warlock up against the Hunter and the Mage for Colorado. Hunter was the weakest class definitively at the end of the last meta. It sort of found a little bit of new life in this meta, but I think that people still don't know exactly what to make of it. Are we playing Spell Hunter with no minions, with Rock Dalar and with To My Side, or is it better to just go the mid-range route still? I don't know that Colorado wants to bring this one up, especially in another very important match for them when they could knock KG out of this altogether and put themselves at a 3-2 man advantage.
Yeah, there's so many options with Hunter, like you said, the Spell Hunter, the mid-range Hunter, but we've also seen at least two different variants of aggressive Hunter. One with the secrets, Cloak Huntress, and the Spellstone, and one without any secrets, just going full face with the Pirates. We're actually not even going to see the Hunter for now, though. So we have a Lunet in hand already. Talking to a lot of players when that card came out, the consensus was that you want to keep it in your opening hand. That's what Xephos is going for. And let's see what the Warlock wants to keep. Because if they suspect it's an aggressive mage, they might want to keep Defile. Possessed Lackey is absolutely insane, so they might want to keep that one as well, but then they risk being overwhelmed early.
So Aleneth is a fantastic tool in Tempo Mage, in Secret Mage, whatever you want to call it, which has historically struggled with resource management. They go hard and heavy very early, and then they run out of cards to play. So Aleneth, if you can drop it on turn 6, means that now you've got too many resources to use. So it's an incredible tool in the deck. If they were up against Zoo, however, they would really be kicking themselves for keeping this in the opening hand. But now we know, of course, that they're playing up against what's likely to be a cube style of Warlock, which is going to rely heavily on Doomsayers plus the Carnivorous cubes.
The cube. You can just call it the cube.
Doomguard plus cube and the Void Daddy coming out on turn 9.
That deck is just so exciting to watch. I've been playing that deck mostly on ladder as well. It's just the most fun deck so far, and there's so many interesting decisions on what card you want to cube, how aggressively you want to play the Doomguards, whether you want to play the Skull or not. So
yeah, with the Skull in hand, now we can assume that there is Doomguards in this build as well for TCNJ. But the thing is, this Warlock deck absolutely slaughters every other deck on the board. The removal is so efficient, the minions are so strong, and you can cheat them out with that Possessed Lackey that no deck can really fight on board up against this Warlock. But Colorado, if they can just utilize all of their burn efficiently and throw it to face, and if TCNJ doesn't have the necessary heal, that's going to be how Colorado gets the edge in this one. And Aleneth is going to mean that Colorado will have access to all of their burn very quickly.
I mean, look at this mage hand. They already have 15 burn damage plus explosive runes. Warlock's actually one of the classes that is the best at defending against explosive runes, because you can play a Possessed Lackey into it and get a big minion immediately. You can play a Void Lord into it and not take any damage. The cube as well. You get to have like the effect first. So there's a lot of good ways to trigger explosive runes, but you have to protect your life total this game if you're the Warlock. And now no good option. So I don't even think there's any 2-drop that would be good here. So maybe you just play the Librarian first.
I think you're playing the Librarian first no matter what. There is a lot of life gain potential for the Warlock. You have the new Lesser Amethyst Spellstone, which can heal up to 7. You have the Siphon Souls, the Mistress of Mixtures. If they're playing N'Zoth, they can bring back the Mistress of Mixtures. So the heal potential is quite good for the Warlock. It's just, do they have the time to gather all of that heal together and to make efficient use out of it? Especially since Colorado now is going to be able to get just 4 damage right to the face here. They've got now 6, 12, 15, 18 damage over 2 turns.
Yeah, they drew
later on.
They drew all their burn. It's pretty impressive how much burn they drew this game. And yeah,
any other matchup, this would be pretty bad.
Yeah, this has to be pretty straightforward. They're just gonna push that face and play Crystal Runner, I would think. Is there any world in which you start fireballing face already?
Ooh.
If you do 6 phase this turn, you get them to
11.
Get them to 11, and then you have 9 more next turn. So that's not enough. Better to I mean, this board's super hard to clear anyway. Are they gonna just go for Doomguard right away? Because you have to be feeling the pressure now. If they don't play Doomguard, they're gonna take 9 next turn just on the board, and they have no other way to clear.
It's really unusual that a Cube Warlock doesn't have Defile in hand, doesn't have Hellfire in hand, has no tools to be able to efficiently clear up the board. That's what they thrive at in the early game. And then they do have tools like Dark Pact, for instance, in the mid game to be able to get some of that health back. So they're used to going down to a health deficit very early on, but they can stabilize and recover from that. They don't have the stabilization tools. They don't have the recovery tools right now. All they've got are minions that they don't have time to play.
Yeah, and we see they might have underestimated the amount of damage this mage deck was going to dish out when they threw Defile in the mulligan.
Yeah.
They would like to see that card back. Even this turn, they could have traded the Talnos to try to get a better answer. But now, yeah, they're just dead.
I don't blame them for throwing Defile. Normally it doesn't line up very well against the mage, and you would assume that the mage doesn't have that many threatening minions in the early game, that maybe you don't need to use Defile. You can just get the most out of your Mistress of Mixtures, for instance. If you're playing the 2-3 Beetle, you can get a lot of use out of that. But TCNJ just didn't have the time. University of Colorado scoops that one up very quickly, and that means that KG de Kamish is eliminated. He is going to have to take off his headset and leave it to his teammates to try and finish this series up. That's a really early elimination for TCNJ, and I think they're going to be feeling the pain of that loss.
Yeah, that's the earliest we've seen someone eliminated today. It's only 3-2, but they have to fight one man down. So who are we seeing next?
It's going to be Answer versus Tiny Fat Sheep yet again. And this is the one matchup that TCNJ don't have to worry about an elimination. Instead, now University of Colorado need to be worried about losing one of their own players. It's the Hunter and the Warrior up against the Paladin and the Warrior for University of Colorado. Warrior can be built a couple of different ways right now. We saw the Woecleaver recruit style of build in the last match. There's also aggressive Pirate Warrior, which just feels a little bit weak in the grand scheme of things right now. So I suspect that both of these are control styles of Warrior. And then Hunter, like we said, a lot of ways you can build it. Still kind of in limbo, I suppose, as to what the best choice for Hunter is right now. Paladin is rather straightforward. So I would suspect from University of Colorado that they're going to go with the Paladin here because it is their strongest option. For TCNJ, I don't know if they want to try and counter that. There's a lot going through their heads. This is not as straightforward as the counter picks from Last Hero Standing, for instance, or the Conquest format that they were used to playing the rest of this tournament in.
And there's, like, Hunter doesn't really counter Paladin, but Warrior has been traditionally really bad against Paladin as well, so kind of expect to see Hunter probably, since Hunter got a big boost from this expansion.
What's it going to be? It is going to be the Hunter, and it's going to be the Warrior. Okay, Explore Ungoro in hand.
Yeah, that's the Togwaggle Warrior we're talking about.
Yeah, so this, we actually did get a hint of this ahead of time. It is King Togwaggle, Explore Ungoro, and Skulking Geist. And you intend to blow up your opponent's deck. And it's pretty sweet.
I wonder if we're going to see that today, because they're facing a very aggressive deck, so Warrior against Hunter, all you have to do is remove all their threats and try not to die, which is easier said than done.
Pretty much the entirety of this Togwaggle Warrior is remove threats and cycle through my deck, try to find my combo pieces. I will admit, I've never seen this deck be played. I don't think anybody's seen this deck be played in a competitive format because it's just so ludicrous. It's a combination that people thought of, and then we're like, no, that's dumb. I'm not going to play that. But University of Colorado is not existing on that same plane. They have brought something that I did not expect to see, but I'm really excited.
I mean, if they can pull out a win with that, not only do they go up for 2, but they get so many internet points.
I'm so surprised that they're bringing this deck out when it is, potentially a removal spot for Tiny Fat Sheep. If he loses this, he's knocked out They must know something about this deck that we don't. Maybe it is stronger against aggro than we think. Warrior with, just in general, the Whirlwind effects, Sleep with the Fishes, Brawl. It does have a lot of good tools against decks that go wide on the board, as well as Execute and Shield Slam for single target removal. So maybe this deck's not as bad as we think it is, because its entire goal is just to survive until you find that Togwaggle combo.
Yeah, I mean, the Taunt Warrior was always pretty decent against Hunter. Well, we see them with the Acolyte here, so that's pretty interesting, because I thought he might be saving the coin for Blood Razor.
Yeah,
that's one of the strongest plays Control Warrior can do now. Looks like he's really committing to the Ghoul play, so he's gonna Acolyte into Ghoul probably.
An additional Corridor Creeper is pretty sweet in Hunter.
Wow, Sleep with the Fishes. Yeah, there's no way he's gonna wait for Sleep Fishes on 5. He has to play the Ghoul here.
Oh, hell no. I mean, this into Blood Razor, and then you can combine the Blood Razor Death Rattle with the Fishes.
Yeah.
Lines up perfectly.
Yeah, this Warrior hand is just great. When you don't draw Togwaggle or Explode Goro, this deck works great.
Maybe.
But then, this deck never wins the game any other way.
You don't need to win the game against Hunter, though. If you kill everything and gain 2 armor every turn, how can you lose?
You need to win the game.
You have to win.
This deck is also going to be aggressively cycling. It's playing Commanding Shout to make the most out of Acolyte of Pain. It's probably playing Wild Pyromancer. So you're going through your deck fast. You're not going to win in fatigue. The only way you win is Togwaggle.
Yeah,
that's literally it. There are no threats in this deck.
Still have to say that TCNJ doesn't know that, and
no, I think they're going to be very surprised.
If we get to the point where they kill everything and still have cards in hand, they might just concede, and which would be sad.
Let's not.
Yeah, that would be pretty sad. Let's not talk about that. Yeah, Blood Razor is insanely strong. Like, I don't think I've won many games as super aggressive decks against Warriors since that card was introduced. Unfortunately, Warrior is just so bad against Druid and Priest that it kind of disappeared. But in this matchup, I really like the Warrior.
So TCNJ going quite heavy on secrets in this build. I would expect that there are Cloaked Huntresses in the deck, and you're trying to make the most out of these secrets with...
Yeah, Cloaked Huntress was kind of forgotten for a while, but it was always super strong.
Leverage Cloaked Huntress with secrets to upgrade that Lesser Emerald Spellstone until you can play 4 3/3s for 5 mana. That's going to be the big swing turn for the Hunter now.
Yeah, unfortunately they don't have the Spellstone in hand yet. They would really like to see that. They're still putting the Warrior fairly low. So now let's see how Colorado decides to play around the secrets. So they have to be worried. For example, is there a good way to play around everything and clear the board at the same time? Because they might want to execute the 5/5. They might want to...
I would think that you're going to go Whirlwind first. If you see Cat Trick, then hit face Fishes.
Fishes execute?
No, no, actually, yeah, Fishes, because the Whirlwind and the Blood Razor Death Rattle. And if it's Wandering Monster, then you're still going to hit. It'll hit into the 3-drop, and the 3-drop will likely just die.
Yeah, that plays around.
And then you get to Hero Power on the backswing. So I think that's probably where you're going with this turn.
Yeah, the only difference is if they have like Explosive Trap, they're going to take initial 2 damage. That's not a huge deal. But, wow, so they're not going to clear the board. They're going to go...
Okay.
They're going to clear...
Yeah,
they're actually clearing everything still. So that actually works as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the only difference is...
Fishes. But they don't have a Whirlwind effect for it now.
So they had to use the Shield Slam that they would not have used. Yeah, it's just a bit different.
So secret heavy.
I have a lot of secrets, but you have to run at least 6 secrets, I would say, if you want to run the Cloaked Huntress.
If you're not playing, if you don't have the Spellstone in hand, though, it doesn't get the benefit of upgrading because it doesn't care that you've played the secrets before. You have to play the secrets while it's in hand. And Hunter still has no way to actually draw cards.
Hunter's in big trouble now. I wonder what Colorado does. Are they just going to go with Commanding Shout to cycle, or are they going to keep all their They're just gonna take it slow, basically.
Like,
there's no reason to do anything.
You say that the Hunter's in trouble, but in my head, I'm just thinking eventually TCNJ is going to draw Savannah Jaime. They're going to draw... They're probably not playing Katharina.
They might not have Jaime in this deck, that's the thing.
You think? What are they topping at then, Bone Mare?
Because we already saw so many small cards. We saw Corridor Creepers.
We saw Stitch Tracker.
I mean, Stitch Tracker can be...
5 secrets
yeah,
so far?
Stitch Tracker kind of means they might have some eye hand they want to tutor for in the late game.
Haven't seen this combo in a very long time since, oh gosh, OTK Warrior?
I only recall seeing this combo whenever I faced Monsanto on ladder.
I think I've seen Rage play it once or twice too.
It's never good news when you see this combo, usually.
Doesn't usually end well for you. So strong when you
wow. Yeah,
actually get
this
to
combo
activate it all, though.
is insane, and they're getting so much value out of it.
And they can pin down the
They have the
remaining
second
secret
armor
to
smith
Wandering
too, so
Monster.
just getting enough armor and waiting.
They just quit!
Oh, they conceded.
We don't even get to see what the deck is built around because TCNJ just concedes. I feel cheated. I'm so mad.
Are we gonna see the warrior again this series?
That warrior
This is like impossible.
has no way to kill the opponent. No way. There are no actual threats in the deck, and it still was good enough to beat Hunter.
Feels bad for Hunter.
So mad. All right, well, Colorado going to extend their lead, and that means that Tiny Fat Sheep is not out of it just yet. SoFlo versus Flame coming up yet again. This time we're down to Druid versus Warlock. This one could be very, very dependent on what kind of Warlock this is to throw it into either SoFlo or Flame's corner.
Yeah, this is a game where New Jersey could come back, because if SoFlo wins, then he can just keep playing his strong decks over again.
Yeah, exactly. If SoFlo wins, then he unlocks all of his decks again. He can play whatever he wants the next time around, and he has the 3 strongest decks that the team has brought, we suspect. So this one will be big. Either SoFlo's knocked out or he's put in a really solid position here. But still, TCNJ are a man down. KG Kamish was eliminated in the last cycle. Colorado still at full manpower. And after that Warrior win, I underestimated these guys, and I won't make that mistake again.
You didn't believe in the warrior there.
I saw Togwaggle like 2 days ago, and I just thought, this is Togwaggle.
I admit, I thought it was the deck they were hoping not to play.
Yeah,
But they made really good use of it against the aggro Hunter. Like, Hunter just couldn't do anything the whole game, which is kind of what you want to do as a control deck. Doesn't matter how you win, you just need to...
If the Hunter can't stick any minions, they can't kill you.
Yeah, basically concede warrior there.
It's just how it works. It's going to be... Okay, so it is the Druid versus the Warlock, but it is aggro Druid for TCNJ, and it looks like Zoo for Colorado.
Wow, an aggro Druid. I mean, if they get the board early, this Zoo hand is not great as well. Oh, well, it's good now. That 2-drop is very good. So it's not a Kelesset Zoo, it's going to be, Homunculus Zoo. So they might have the more heavy demon version with Demon Fire, then you have Blood Fury Potion, Crystal Weaver.
The winner of this game unlocks all of their decks for the next cycle. The loser is eliminated. So TCNJ here could go down to just Answer remaining if they lose this game. Whereas if Flame is knocked out, then things are evened up a little bit more.
Yeah, this is the most important game so far for TCNJ.
Big time.
Yeah, because Answer's decks are Hunter, Warrior, and Mage, so it's going to be tough to reverse sweep with that.
Okay, so at first thought, both of these decks are very aggressive. Colorado's Zoo deck is going to be much more capable at going to the late game. They have more mid game, they have late game with Bone Mares, with Blood Reaver, Gul'dan, so on and so forth. Whereas TCNJ really front loads all of the power very early on, needs to take that board quickly, needs to spiral that lead to a victory very early on. Who do you think is favored in this one?
I mean, seeing those hands, I think the aggro Druid is in a good spot. They get to play Mark of Yasharaj on the Raven, one of the most powerful things you can do as Druid. So yeah, I think they set it up very well. Next, if they can manage to go wide and land Power of the Wild, they should lock this game up. But wow, Blood Fury Potion, that's a great draw, so they just cleared the board with that. Like, they could still go with the Soulfire, but Blood Fury has to be better here.
You get to keep your Voidwalker around. Patches plus throwing in the Voidwalker never feels good. You don't want to sacrifice the board up against Aggro Druid.
Yeah.
You want to fight as much as you can because that's what the Zoo does. Zoo is incredibly effective at fighting for the board early on and then leveraging the minions that you have left over with massive buffs in the late game. And of course, the demon value from Blood Fury Potion and Demon Fire that you're going to find from this deck. And the Aggro Druid simply can't win if it doesn't have board presence.
Yeah, and now they did manage to land the Power of the Wild on 3 minions, which is not bad. +3/+3 for 2 mana. But it could have been much worse if they didn't draw that Blood Fury Potion. Wow.
Colorado still playing from behind a little bit, not where the Zoo wants to be, but Zoo does have a lot better recover mechanic than the Aggro Druid does.
Yeah, they're going to have to Soulfire this turn. Now, I mean, you want to discard Patches. There's no way you place Patches here.
Playing the Patches doesn't accomplish anything for you anyway.
No, you really want to discard that card. They actually didn't, but
that's okay.
That's
I
the
would say
second
that's
best
the
one
second
to
best.
discard, yeah. And Patches can still get used. Like, they might need one damage ping at some point, so it's possible Patches is even more useful than the 4-drop here.
But now TCNJ have picked up
Wow,
living
this
mana for
is,
turn 5. How does the Zoo come back from that one without Despicable Dreadlord into Despicable Dreadlord? That's just not a board that the Warlock ever clears, and I really like the decision to go for the Poisonous Spider here off of this Druid of the Swarm. I'd say 9 times out of 10, you see an Aggro Druid this become that Taunted Scarab, but this challenges the Despicable Dreadlord or a Doomguard coming down this turn beautifully.
Yeah, especially when your board is pretty wide like this, and you're facing an empty board. You don't have any minions you need to protect, so it makes sense to diversify your threats and get a Poisonous. Wow.
Can't Patches and Blood Fury Potion this turn. You can Patches into the Spider to set up for Despicable Dreadlord next turn.
I mean, this is only better if they draw a 1-drop next turn. Otherwise, I mean, they might taunt. It's still fine to do it now, but they're not in a good spot here. So, are they gonna cash in the Savage Roar now?
It's 8, 13.
Savage Roar is 10 damage now. They might want to cash it in.
Yeah, 16 total damage from TCNJ this turn. Oh, well, more if you Power of the Wild, actually. So, Power of the Wild's 4.
Yeah, they have 19 damage.
Yeah.
So,
close
thinking from TCNJ's point of view, like, how do you lose if you do the 16 damage burst?
Don't think you do, but they're going to elect to go with a wider board. Then again, how do you lose from this position as well? What can the Warlock do for 6 mana that you end up losing the game here? On the backswing, any Savage Roar is going to kill Colorado. So TCNJ just going to lock this one up either way you cut it. Unfortunately, Colorado played from behind in all of the early game. They were never able to get ahead.
Yeah, Aggro Druid is one of the most punishing decks to be behind against. So is this gonna be lethal already? Yeah, for sure. It's 12 damage Savage Roar, so...
This is going to be elimination for Flame.
So Flame is out. This is really huge for NG, because they're still down a game, but they eliminated the guy with the most powerful decks.
Well... yeah.
They still have Zephos with the Priest, though, so... Zephos going to be able to play the Priest again.
The
so
Priest is really valuable.
If he can get another win there, it's going to be solid.
It's tough, but definitely step number 1 has been accomplished, which is eliminate the most stacked lineup of 3 decks. And after going down in game number 1, SoFlo has managed to make a comeback individually, but TCNJ as a team, of course, are working together to accomplish this. And now they're still at a 4-3 deficit, but they're starting to climb back in, whereas if they'd lost this one, I think the series may have just been entirely locked up. Of course, KG de Kamish has been eliminated, so next it is going to be Answer taking on Zephos, which means it's Warrior for TCNJ and the Hunter for Colorado. And Zifo still has 2 of his lives left, the only player who has yet to lose a game. And SoFlo's decks are entirely unlocked because he's played all 3. He lost with the Priest in Game 1, but then managed to pick up wins with both the Rogue and the Druid. So when SoFlo goes up against Tiny Fat Sheep will be limited to just that Paladin, and SoFlo can attempt to counter it with any of his 3 decks.
Yeah, that's an interesting turn of events. And now Answer manages to avoid playing the Warrior into the Paladin as well. He can get the Warrior into the Hunter, which might be more favored.
Significantly better.
I mean, we're going to see if it's a Pirate Warrior or a Control, but we've just seen what Control Warrior does to Hunter. So, are we getting a rematch?
It was pretty good. It still could be a Recruit Warrior. It could be a Taunt Warrior. I would be stunned if it was another Togwaggle Warrior. It is an Aggressive Warrior.
Oh, it's a Pirate Warrior.
Okay, and another minion-based Hunter for Colorado.
Yeah, and we've seen them keep the Corridor Creeper of the bat. Yeah, against another aggressive deck, Corridor Creeper is just nuts in tempo battles. Hunter has a good hand too. Oh, they're playing Loot Hoarder in that Hunter. Are they playing? Why do you play Loot Hoarder in Hunter? Are they playing N'Zoth?
Because Hunter can't draw cards. No, you're not playing N'Zoth. I don't think Hunter ever goes that late. But it is simply that Hunter has no draw mechanic.
Because there's a lot of good 2-drops in Hunter. There's
Crackling Razor Maw, Grandmother.
There's Aina. There's Galaka Crawler that's been played.
A lot that you would rather have than Loot Hoarder, but
yeah, I'm surprised
to
to
me
see
that just means that they feel very limited by the lack of card draw in the Hunter, and they want to put at least a little bit of card draw
in.
in.
They do play the Galaka Crawler, which is going to be huge in this matchup, so I think the key against Pirate Warrior is to keep your Galaka Crawler to kill a big pirate. You don't want to coin that out for sure. So it's going to be between Candle Shot and Darmol. Like the Darmol could have traded with both of these pirates, which makes it in the same turn, and use a weapon charge. But you can also keep the Darmol as a 1-mana beast to combo with a Houndmaster in the same turn later, so that's really interesting too.
We're not living in a 2-mana Fiery Borax
God.
world, so that Dire Mole wouldn't get killed right away. At least not without eating up a minion or 2.
Alright, so drawing patches here. I think I still like Dire Mole plus patches more than the Crawler, just because if you can kill like a cultist or any bigger pirate, it's a way better swing than just killing a 2-1 that's gonna die anyway to get your 3-4.
Yeah, the cultist or
really like
the Corsair in hand for TCNJ would be very nice noms for Colorado. And of course, they're not taking any damage off of these swings with Candle Shot, so really effective actually at clearing up the early game from the Pirate Warrior, which Hunter used to not be able to do. They'd drop Alley Cat, but Rusty Hook would be right there, so maybe Hunter's gotten a little bit more resilient.
Yeah, so we see them go with the Corridor Creeper right away, biggest minion they could put on the board. Also, it's not super exciting to play a Cultist without getting the effect, so drawing this Arcanite Reaper, they might be thinking they want to go Arcanite Reaper plus Corsair and then try to play the Cultist and upgrade the Reaper. However, the Hunter is still at really high health here. While Spiteful Summoner...
What spells is this warrior playing?
It's the Spellstone, probably. The 7-mana Spellstone.
Yeah.
So they're going to get a 7-drop.
The Amber Spellstone?
Mithril, I think.
The Mithril Spellstone, you're right.
Yeah, they're going to get a 7-drop out of it. I mean, 7 drops aren't as good as 8 drops or 10 drops that we see other decks play with the Spiteful Summoner. But there's still...
Really
it's
good.
still a free 7-drop, so you take those.
And actually, the Mithril Spellstone in this deck...
Are we going to see Galaka Crawler come out? Yeah, for sure.
Put as much power on the board as the Hunter possibly can, and now it looks like they've turned the corner a little bit. Maybe they can start to go face to put a little bit of pressure on. Getting rid of the hit of the Candle Shot to set up for a potential Eaglehorn Bow equip next turn.
Yeah, so we've seen TCNJ opt for the basically paying mana for their Dread Corsair when they could have had it for free, and this made it so they couldn't play a minion this turn. So they went for a long game. Maybe with the Spiteful Summoner in hand, you want to go for tempo a bit more.
I'm just really surprised that we're even seeing Pirate Warrior. This is we're still living in a Fiery Borax world.
I mean, some people Some people think Pirate Warrior is still pretty good. Definitely it's a deck you don't expect to see, so it's harder to mulligan effectively against it. If you expect a Control Warrior and head into Pirate, that can give you an edge.
And if you're playing with the lesser Mithril Spellstone, you want to have more weapons in your deck to be able to summon more minions off of it, so playing Fiery War Axe, you might as well.
They didn't get a good minion here, though, and they're facing so much damage.
Well,
they're facing 14 damage on board.
7-drops in general are not very good. I would argue that at least the Benedictus has a high enough health total that it's going to clear up a couple of these minions. It's not a terrible drop. And the grand scheme of things, they weren't looking at many potential good drops anyway.
I mean, what has to be the average for a 7-drop? Something like a 6/6 maybe is the average, or that's or not even. Are 7-drops that bad?
For 7-drops, I think 7/7's about as good as it gets. You got what? Prophet Velen, War Golem. I don't think there's any just raw statted 7-mana minion.
I mean, there's the Bog Creeper.
Yeah, Bog Creeper. Okay, so 7 mana, 6/8
But I mean, that's only one of them, so pretty unlikely to get it.
But it doesn't matter. Colorado is swinging away. They're going to likely be able to close this one out in a couple of turns, unless TCNJ picks up another Dread Corsair,
I mean,
maybe,
they need
to
the
put
Bog Creeper.
a little bit of taunt in the way.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Bog Creeper. Yeah, it's not as good as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, they're dead on board, so...
Gonna go through all of their options. They can armor up to 7.
I mean, yeah, they're actually not dead on board with the armor up, but it's not looking...
No,
great.
It's one off for Colorado.
There's still an outside chance Hunter never picks up one more damage.
Never mind.
Yeah, not gonna happen.
Okay, so the Hunter deck for Colorado looking a lot better than the Hunter for TCNJ, and that is going to be a knockout for Answer. He has been eliminated, and Xephos still remains undefeated. Really impressive stuff from Colorado here. Fortunately, SoFlo is going to have to say goodbye to Answer, and that is a 5-3 score. Colorado on match point. They could potentially take this one with the next game. SoFlo is going to need to win 3 in a row now, but he does have all of his decks unlocked.
Yeah, I'm actually liking this format a lot. It's pretty exciting because now, now SoFlo can show what he can do with all the best decks, and he can also choose which order to queue them in to try to attack the specific decks from Xephos and Tiny Fat Sheep. So I think he still has a decent chance here.
And Xephos decks are unlocked as well, so he will have access to all 3 of them. But it is going to be SoFlo up against Tiny Fat Sheep first. So SoFlo can try to counter this Paladin as best as he possibly can. He has the Rogue, the Druid, and the Priest. The Druid is an aggro Druid. And the Priest, Highlander Priest, of course. The Rogue is just a tempo rogue. What would you bring to go up against this Paladin right now?
Like, I'm thinking all the decks are good against Paladin. So you can go one step further and think, what do I want to play against Xephos? Yeah. So, and if he beats the Paladin, then Tiny Fat Sheep is out, and he's going to need 2 of his decks against 2 of Xephos' decks. So I think he might just want to play... wouldn't be surprised to see maybe the Rogue here. Probably Rogue or Druid, I would say. Rogue has a really good matchup against Paladin.
But I would
Aggro Druid
understand
as well. Aggro Druid might be weaker against decks like Mage.
Oh, it's going to be the Priest. Okay, so SoFlo wants to bring as much removal to the table as he possibly can against this Paladin, but this is scary. I personally, when I think Paladin versus Priest, I think that the Paladin has a lot of pressure in the early game, and if the Priest doesn't have the exact right answers, which the nature of Highlander Priest means that a lot of the time they won't, then it's very difficult for the Priest to contest. So I think this is actually a risky bring for SoFlo.
Yeah, this is a matchup we've seen before in this series, and we've seen the Priest win it. So that might have factored into his decision, but now we see...
That card right there is going to be a massive player. The Kazakus versus no Kazakus for the Priest in this matchup is huge. You go Kazakus on 4 into 5 mana potion if you can deal 4 to all. then you can likely find a board clear that naturally the deck doesn't have access to.
Yeah, Kazakus is huge. We saw him take Shadow Word Pain over Psychic Stream here, so he's not thinking super long game yet. He has the Dragon Priest as well. We see a Scalebane in his hand.
Reporting for duty.
I'm just thinking, like, this Paladin hand is so heavy.
It's
like
not
they actually have a lot of sustained pressure. Like they're slow for now, but if he gets a good card off his Spiteful Summoner, this could be very scary for the priest.
Speak to me.
And of course, we're expecting off of that Spiteful Summoner to see Spike Ridge Seed, Dino Size.
I mean, this is tough to deal with. It's gonna draw so many cards with this Acolyte, like at least 2 cards. Yeah, I'm not liking Aldor. Like every time we see it, it's always a bit disappointing.
I'm wondering what the intended target for that Aldor is. What deck they're hoping to come up against and net ultimate value off of that.
Also interesting to see a Finja. That's a card that shines a bit more in aggro mirrors. Like we've seen a lot of Paladins cut Finja lately.
5/5 Demon.
Oh, that's not what you want to see, yeah.
Freeze 2, draw 2. You maybe just go for the draw here. Try to find Dragonfire Potion. Try to find Arcanine Circle. Shadow Reaper Anduin. 5/5 Demon, probably not enough.
I think you might go for the 5/5.
You think?
I think you have to fight for board as hard as possible. Wow, that's one of the worst potions possible. Just no removal at all.
Deal 4 would have been a clean clear here.
Yeah, deal 4, like summon a 5/5 is just
sick.
Backbreaking, but
looks like it's summon a 5/5, probably draw 2, I would think. So unfortunate whiff there for TCNJ. It is actually summon a 5/5 and gain 7 armor. So instead of aggressively digging through the deck trying to find the removal, SoFlo is going to play it so that he gains armor and has additional time that way.
I mean, he's going to get a lot of time, but at some point, the Paladin just going to come out with, like, big threats turn after turn after turn.
And it's still going to be SoFlo's job to check those threats every time.
Yeah, and if you're SoFlo, you have to think the Paladin's going to have big threats because he hasn't played any, like, small cards. Like, this is not the start a Murloc Paladin wants. He has played no cheap Murlocs. So
like no Murlocs, period.
So you can eliminate all those from his hand. You know he's not holding Murlocs, so what's he holding? The deck is Murlocs and big threats, so he has to have big threats.
With the dragons in the deck, that means that SoFlo does have access to Duskbreaker as an additional form of AoE. If he can find that, if he can find Nether Spite Historian and discover that card, then he will have more removal than the Rizakus Priest normally has access to. But still, he's going to be feeling the pain of this Kazakus Potion, not even finding deal 5 damage, for instance, to clear off this Gentle Megasaur.
Yeah, I think I would have liked to see Psychic Stream.
Psychic Stream instead of Pain? Yeah,
instead of Pain, because Pain doesn't do that much. Like, it has one good target, pretty much, which is the War Leader.
It's tough to, on turn 2, though, up against an aggressive deck, say, I'm going to take this 7-mana spell.
Yeah, but on one hand, you didn't see a Murloc on 1.
True.
So the War Leader is not going to be as good if it comes out on 3, so... I don't know, I would have taken that in his spot, but it's still pretty tricky, and it's hard to tell what is right, because it depends on so many factors.
Well, with the Dino Size off of the operative, SoFlo is now going to expect Spiteful Summoner, potentially on turn 6 from Tiny Fat Sheep.
Quickly.
I would expect, yeah, the Scalebane here. He's playing a dragon-oriented priest deck, so one more dragon in hand never hurt.
So is he going to want to try to coin a Bone Mare next turn, or is he going for the Summoner right away?
I think you get an 8-drop right away, unless...
Yeah, unless
you're playing
I like Summoner. He's probably playing Steed as well. Is he playing only 2 Dino Size? It's possible too. Like, we didn't see a Steed, and we see a lot of big drops, so it's possible he only has the Dino Size. So what does he want to trade on board? Like, he can clear the old board and play Spiteful Summoner. He can play Spiteful Summoner, see what happens, and then decide what he wants to trade.
Clear the whole boards, play Spiteful Summoner, and play
Corridor Creeper.
Creeper.
So that makes you want to trade a... Whoa, we did... Okay, so he really wants to go for Bone Mare next turn then.
That's fine. You would like to get this Bone Mare out before TCNJ has access to Shadow Reaper Anduin.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefit to coining the Bone Mare. You get 2 turns of Bone Mare damage.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Plus then, the Spiteful Summoner by itself at any point in time is going to be a major threat.
Yeah, the only thing is that Finja is so weak in this matchup. But he's probably thinking, oh, if my opponent plays something, then I can just Bone Mare the Finja, get a lot of small threats out. And if you have big threats and small threats together, then you play around Anduin perfectly. The one card you don't play around, though, is Psychic Scream.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop bringing it up now.
I mean, if Soflo does not find that card later on, then it will be a big
we're kind of
mistake
biased because
taking
we see
Shadow
both
Reaper
hands,
Lane.
so
of course,
looking at all these threats, you're like, you need a big removal to clear that. So let's see if he goes for the Bone Mare trade. I mean, he pretty much has to do it. That's what he's been setting up for.
And because he didn't find any of those early Murlocs in the first couple of turns, he's going to be pulling them out now, thinning the deck, and making the density of draws that much better, getting him closer to Tyrion, closer to Tarim.
It's even an option to trade the Creeper instead to be a bit stronger against Dragonfire, but yeah,
This is playing all in.
Yeah, he's really all in. He loses to Dragonfire and Psychic Scream here, but luckily there's none of those cards in Soflo's hand, and he knows like the Shadow Visions card is still there, so what can that be? Like, I'm not sure he expects Shadow Word Pain to be still in the hand.
No, I mean,
7 turns later.
This
or
would be
5 turns.
Dragonfire Potion or Psychic Scream.
You have to expect Dragonfire Potion, but
19, 23 damage with the Bone Mare next turn.
Yeah, this is looking really good for
Colorado.
Yeah.
TCNJ can heal out of range, but with no removal, there's just no way that they win this game. And that's what I'm talking about.
19 damage plus Bone Mare is 4, 23.
Yeah, you can heal out of range, but that's what I was saying. With TCNJ queuing up the Priest right now, Priest I don't think is as good of a matchup against Paladin as he was hoping. But feeling, of course, horrible since you missed the 4 AoE off of the Kazakus Potion. He missed deal 5 damage off of the Kazakus Potion. That could have swung this matchup significantly in his favor. So it is, the fact that he's gotten a little bit unlucky, but still, I do think that the Rogue would have been a lot better in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, but also for the reason that Priest is just a better deck than Rogue in general, so you want the Priest
save that until later on.
You wanted to save the Priest there. I mean, I would have liked to see Psychic Scream. He got unlucky never to get a Dragonfire or a big removal, but he didn't draw much as well. Like, probably when you play the Dragon version like this, you don't draw nearly as much as you would if you played the normal Ratakis version, like
Loot Order, Novice Engineer, Gnomish Inventor.
Yeah, so
the more aggressive cycle version.
Yeah, so you might want to prioritize your important cards even more because you know it's going to be harder to draw them. So what are they thinking here? Do they ever get punished by trading?
They just saw that TCNJ didn't have any AoE.
I mean, they might have Anduin on 8 though.
That's true.
And wow, does this play into Anduin or not?
Yeah, it does.
So now he can draw Anduin and win. Wow, that's crazy. Crazy turn of events.
They don't call him Anduin for nothing. Does he get
it?
No! Look at the head fall. So many outs.
Yeah, Soflo couldn't believe it that he could draw Anduin and win there.
Anduin, Dragonfire Potion, Psychic Scream. All of them could have won him this game, and he whiffed yet again. That is so heartbreaking for him. For TCNJ as a team, this is their 4th TESPA Collegiate playoff. This is the first time they've made it past the round of 8. And unfortunately, it looks like their run is going to be cut short here because of a series of really, really bad Priest draws. And maybe a couple of bad Priest choices, not taking that Psychic Scream off of the Discover, queuing Priest in the first place. There are things that Soflo could have done differently, but still, the odds are just stacked against him in this one. It did not play out the way he wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I almost wanted to see the Anduin draw there because it would have been so perfect.
So gross!
Yeah, it would have been have been disgusting.
Disgusting, as Pavel would say. No, that's more than lethal on the board. Colorado are going to the grand finals. They're going to be facing off against Texas Tech, a team with no previous TESPA experience, a team who met through their university's esports club. They just teamed up because, well, in their own words, they thought they're the best of the best, and now they have a chance to prove that they actually are. 6-3. That's a very impressive score.
Yeah, I mean, we thought it was going to end up being super close when it was 2-2, and we thought SoFlo could come back. Yeah. And it was a pretty exciting series. We did see the Volcano play on the Rod phase. Yeah. We saw the Togwaggle Warrior almost being
relevant, sort of. There were some weird deck choices from Colorado, and I'm excited to see how this plays out in the finals for them up against Texas Tech, because here I think it worked out very well. But in another scenario, things could go very, very wrong for them. But this time around, it paid off in spades. They did an incredible job, and their win here is going to reflect that. But TCNJ, unfortunate for them. Again, they have so much TESPA experience. SoFlo as a player won 29 Open Cups, 64 top 4 finishes in the last year and a half. I think his future in particular in competitive Hearthstone is very bright, but right now it is all about University of Colorado Boulder. We do have an interview ready with our winning team. Congratulations, guys. How does it feel to be going to the grand finals?
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. We got a win with the Checkmate Warrior. We're really happy.
All right, that actually is perfect, because I do have to ask about that. We saw Togwaggle Warrior on the list of decks a couple of days ago. Why are you bringing it, and why did it work?
So the funny thing about Togwaggle Warrior, it runs a crap ton of AoE, and just like a ton of it. We were expecting a lot of aggro, and the trouble that Pirate Warrior and Taunt Warrior and N'Zoth Warrior all have is that they're sort of like, well, they're bad, but they're, especially Pirate Warrior, it's like just 40% against all the other aggro decks. So we were like, okay, what can we do that's going to beat an aggro deck more than 40% of the time? And the answer to that was actually just a bunch of AoEs, a bunch of draw, and then so that you don't deck yourself at the end, you put it in Togwaggle, Explore and Grow, and Skulking Geist, and yeah, it sometimes works, and you get them.
I mean, it was absolutely beautiful to see. I know I underestimated the potential of that deck, but it was really freaking cool. Your Shaman deck as well was something that we didn't expect to see. Why did you bring that in your lineup?
Yeah, that was kind of the same plan. Just lots of
aggro.
Yeah. Maybe. It beats aggro more often than the Evolve Shaman does, basically.
So
the Evolve Shaman just comes forward to the newer, better aggro decks.
A pretty clear strategy going into this tournament, and seeing like it certainly paid off. Talk to us a little bit. How was your run through the rest of this tournament? Did you guys have an easy time, or how was your Swiss 7 rounds?
Yeah, the very first, like the weekly Swiss rounds, or the first 7 rounds went pretty well, 5-2, and then we went 5-2 again, and yeah, then we got here.
Well, you got to get here somehow, and you guys certainly have made the most of your time. You're going to the grand finals to face off against Texas Tech. Cannot wait to see what you can do with some of your really interesting decks. Congratulations.